I don't know about you, but the month of April has been full. I feel like I've had decision after decision after decision to make, and some of them have been coming and some of them were sudden. And I have found myself coming back again and again to the idea of holding things loosely and like, can we do this in a joyful way? Can this be playful? And what's the purpose? Like, why does it matter? And those filters have helped me through some really tough decisions this month about how I spend my time in the middle of writing a book and having a family and running a business and facing all of those pressures that just come at you. And so I'm really excited today to go back and kind of think about how that's impacted us in our In Case You Missed It episode. So if you are new here, welcome to the Joyosity podcast. So glad that you're here. Everything that we do at Joyosity is based on really three bedrock beliefs. And one is that true leadership requires more than just some surface level strategies. See? It requires a profound connection to everything that makes us human, even when you make mistakes with your voice. 2, using genuine curiosity, we can create positive culture with all of the complex people and complexity of our world because that is all we've got. And number 3, joy is the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. And that is what we are putting right in the center. And every week we've got conversations with people. This month we had Ron Tite, who is the owner and CEO of Church and State, a large advertising agency, and brought his expertise. He's also an author who is written 2 books now. His most recent one that comes out next week is called The Purpose of Purpose. And that's what we're discussing. And I am Jenn Whitmer. I'm an international speaker, leadership consultant, and all-around joy bringer, helping you and guiding us along the way. And so this episode always involves one of my favorite people in the world, Shelby Merryweather. And so she is coming as our podcast producer and business owner herself. And so let's welcome Shelby. Hello.
Happy April.
Yes. So as we've been thinking about, this month, this idea that sometimes we get so serious and, I talked about making decisions. How have you been thinking about purpose and play and being professional? I guess 3 P's there. What have you been thinking about this month?
Purpose, play, and professionalism. I have struggled with that with my business since the beginning. I think the idea of professionalism and kind of like how professional is professional enough, how much, because I don't really connect well with that word. Like and the professionalism I struggle with a little bit.
Yeah.
But there is
what makes you struggle with it? Like, what is the challenge of that word?
That's a good question. It feels stuffy. It doesn't feel fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it feels, if I go to the negative end of professional, for me, it feels contrived. Like there's this fakeness to it that I think I don't like. That's the negative connotation. I think there are positive connotations, but when I struggle with the word or the concept, that's what it is, a fakeness that it
and I think for me, kind of to like your point, it feels fake. It doesn't feel like human to me. If we're being professional, are we still being human? And what I've come to learn is that yes, you can be professional and be human, right? And it's kind of who surrounds you. And I've learned a little bit like the positive of that, of being, organized and good at your job and caring about your job. Because sometimes when you think of like not professional, you would think of somebody who's just not
irresponsible.
Yes, exactly.
Irresponsible. That's when I think of unprofessional.
Yeah.
I think of irresponsible in the best sense of the word. Not like it's good to be irresponsible, but like that feels accurate.
Right. And so anyways, back to your point of like kind of playing around with that idea of like what is like professionalism, purpose, and how can my business go by that, like we believe so we do by doing, that Ron talked about, is almost a way of making it like you can be authentic and stay on the path, even if I'm not professional necessarily. You know what I mean? Not. So that's been playing around in my head a lot. And I really enjoyed the part of the conversation about change and how we have to think about change, because I think the idea of like, okay, we're scared to make these big changes, but would we be more not scared, or maybe more, I don't know what the word is, with staying the same, more
Yes. Yeah.
disappointed with staying the same or something. And
Yeah.
I loved that part of the conversation that you
Yeah.
brought.
One of the things that I have a friend who, I can't remember, I don't think I told this on the podcast, but I have a friend who is a fellow speaker, and she applied for a really big job. Like, she's been an entrepreneur for 7, 8, 9 years now and on her own. And there was an opportunity that came up to be the top officer at an incredibly large organization. And she's a great fit for the role. She used to work for that organization. She has all of the skill sets. But there was this like, oh my gosh, do I have to? She would possibly have to move countries because it was in a different country, where she has lived before. But it was a whole thing. And one of the things that she said, she's like, I would be so disappointed if I didn't at least try. I didn't
Yeah.
at least try, which I loved that posture, because I think so much we get caught in not changing because we're like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Because we're thinking so much about the outcome, like as if we can control all the outcomes rather than, well, what does it look like to start the process? What does it look like to do the next step of the process? What, and like taking it in smaller chunks and be more about process and openness and play along the way, like experimentation, instead of, well, it has to be this or this, and I don't want this, so therefore I'm not changing. I
Yeah.
think that's what happens. And I was so proud of her for just
Yeah.
trying. And um, and I just love that she's like, I would have been disappointed if I hadn't at least tried. And I
Right.
came back to that a lot this month, thinking about Ron talking about purpose and change.
Right, and I really love, I think a lot of times I'm the same, where it's like, well, if I make this decision, then that's what I'm doing. Like, I can't unmake the decision, or I can't change again, right? Because
Right?
it feels like, oh, I'm gonna make this decision and then I'm just stuck in that decision, and am I okay? And while there are life decisions that do end up that way, right?
Yeah.
In a way. But there are other decisions in life where it's like, well, let's just see what happens. Like, let's experiment with it. And that has been a huge learning lesson. I feel like I've been like, that idea of experimentation and failing or
Mhm.
not getting things right has been a struggle of mine, especially for the past couple years, of just being okay with trying things, and when they don't work out, changing them, which is
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. I think maybe that's just entrepreneurship and
Yeah. What
something.
about it is hard for you? Like, I understand what my struggle is in that, but I wonder what yours is. Like, what makes that challenging?
I don't like having to, well, okay, 2 parts to this. I would say a big part of this is affecting other people in my circles. Like, the
Yeah.
way I change things is gonna affect those that work for me, or those that I live with,
Mhm.
or whatever, and kind of, like, mixing that up or shaking that up for them is hard. It's a hard thing for me to be like, "Hey, guys, like, I'm gonna do this now, and I know it's
Mhm.
gonna impact you." But I would say that, and then just in general, like, the unknown of changing,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
is a common thing, but
It makes perfect sense that you as a 2 would be worried about, well, how it impacts other people, but I think as a leader, we all bear that weight. Like, you do have a little bit of that responsibility of, I do make decisions that impact other people. And while they don't always get to be involved in every part of the decision-making process, they still have the impact of it, and which I think carries that concern and that weight. I Mine is slightly more shallow. Uh, I get worried that people are gonna think I'm flighty, that I don't know what I'm doing, that, oh, she just keeps going from one thing to the next. And I know where that story comes from. It's a very old story from like elementary school. Like, I've identified it, but I still run up against it sometimes. Like, well, if
yeah.
I change this, if I don't do that, people are going to think I'm indecisive, I'm flighty, I'm unprofessional, I don't know
Mhm.
what I'm doing. And that's the struggle that I have. And I think we do absolutely bear the weight of other people. And I want to normalize situations change and we can change with them. If I get new information or I have a new thing that comes into my world, I have to adjust to that. And we need to normalize that, even though that's my fear. Like, I fear that's what people are going to think, but I also want to totally normalize. Oh, I got new information. So I changed my mind. I changed the way I wanted to do business. My husband got a different job. So that meant we had to adjust in this way, or I got a different job. And so, and so that fear of change comes from, I think, a different place, but we all have that, like, ooh, what is it about change that makes us a little nervous?
But I really loved in your solo episode when you were talking about how sometimes as the leader, you are kind of shielding your team from your
Yeah.
stress or your burden or whatever it is, and you think you're helping.
Yeah.
But what's really happening is your team's like, there's something off. Like, what is going on? Something's wrong or something's
Mhm.
different. What is this? And you're actually causing more stress by not just
Yes.
being like, hey, like, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm trying to decide on. Um,
Mhm.
which is funny because with some business things that I've had come up recently, my team, by the time I get to them, they're like, "Oh, I figured, like, I thought." And I'm like, "Okay, I gotta do better at that." Because I think I was doing that where it was like, I wasn't giving all the information and they were having to figure it out. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's not fair. I hate being in a relationship with somebody where I have to figure things out. You
Oh
know what
my
I
gosh.
Ugh, I hate
Yes.
it. Don't
I
make
hate
me
it.
figure it out. Just tell me. Like
Right, right. Well, because there's so much, that it's insecure because I don't know, are you thinking, I'm left to the guessing.
Yeah.
And so you either scenario build, even if you're not fully aware, if you're not astute enough to go, something's off, you know it unconsciously, and you're still doing that work. And I think it's the speed of trust, but I'm not sure, that talks about transparency as one of the tenets. And transparency doesn't necessarily mean telling everybody every little gory detail. But when you're that smushed leader where you're trying to protect your team from all of the pressure from above, one, they know something's off, like you just said. And so transparency helps reassure them and create security and trust for you. But also, you aren't designed to bear all of that yourself.
No.
Like the pressure from above, or from sometimes our own expectations, but in this case, talking about from a leader, from somebody else, where you're trying to shield your team, you aren't meant to bear that weight. And demonstrating that vulnerability of like, hey, this is some of the pressure that I'm getting. I want to protect you, but I also need your help in managing this. What kinds of things would you like to do? Because you also don't have to come up with all the solutions on your own, because you hired good people. That's why you have a team.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I always giggle with that too because sometimes there's things that I'm like, I have to do, and then I get to a place where I'm like, "Oh, I should share with the team, like, that I'm struggling with this." And I always laugh because it's like somebody on the team will be like, "Oh, I can do that." Like, I would love to do that. And I'm like, "Oh, I thought that you wouldn't like it," or like, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like, it's just being honest and open, and I do struggle with that transparency bit of, like, how transparent is too much, how
Yeah.
it's not. It's a little different with me because I work with a lot of my family, so it's, you know,
Mhm.
way more transparent than
Right.
it would be, and with others that I work with that aren't quite as much, you know? So it's like that transparency piece is always hard and kinda goes back to that professionalism of, like,
Hmm.
transparency sometimes doesn't feel professional. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
where's that line?
Yeah. Yeah, that story about professionalism that is kind of like buttoned up and got it all together doesn't leave room for the humanity that, like, this is a lot and I don't know everything. And then we want to work as a team, which is a much healthier approach that will get you further in the end. There's that. I went to visit one of my friends in South Africa years ago, and then we revisited at an event. Oh my gosh, I guess it's been 10 years now. But both times I flew into the Johannesburg airport. And in Joburg, when you come down from, like, when you leave your flight and you're going down to get your bags, so down the big elevator, there's just like this 3-story mural of giraffes, and it's beautiful. It's like this great mural, and it's got this big phrase on it that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I love that image because it's this group of giraffes who are, going far together. And we as people think that we have to do it alone. Like there's that American bootstrap myth. But really, if we want to go farther and sustain ourselves and not burn out and fall over, then we need the other people in us or with us and around us.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend recently we were talking about that quote that's like, everybody wants a village, but nobody wants to be the villager.
Yes. That has
And
been going on, yeah.
I love that because I want to be the villager. Let me be the villager. You know what I mean? Like, but I think we all don't, I get what the quote is saying, but I think it's funny because a lot of times with this whole idea of like, we do need a village again. We need our people, we need our community. And it can look very different nowadays with remote and the internet and all of that. But just like this idea of like finding your people and going together it's so important. And we're robbing each other by not letting the other people help us. You know what I mean?
Yes, there's so much that is lost there's so much richness that is lost because of that. So we use Blue Apron right now. We go back and forth. And so it's like a meal kit kind of thing that comes. And we joke that the Blue Apron recipes, they love the word the frond, which is when you cook meat, there's like the leftover brown bits in the bottom of the frying pan. That's the frond. And so you leave it in there to make the sauce. And that's because it's the richness, it's the layers, it's the group together. And it can feel like this. I mean, isn't that just gross extras? No, that's what actually brings the flavor and the goodness to the sauce. And we do that with each other. Like we need those extra bits. And that quote that was going around, I heard somebody say, nobody wants to be the villager. And they're like, oh yeah, you can have the village. You just have to pay for it. And I got kind of mad.
I did too.
I was kind of like, I don't love that. I think that what we don't want to do when we say we don't want to be the villager, it doesn't mean we want to be the leader. We don't want to be the follower. It means we don't want to put forth the effort in reciprocating or asking for help or being the one who helps, like the effort that it takes to do that. We don't want to be the frond in the pan. We don't want to be the leftovers.
Yeah.
But when you think about it like that, you're like, oh, that's the crispy good, like the edgy I love the crispy edges of cheese, like those extra things are the best. And it is worth the effort of just sending that message to a friend. And it's like, hey, I'm kind of struggling. Can you chat for 5 minutes? Or I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you doing? Like that's being a villager. And you can do that at work. You can do that with your family, your friends, your mastermind of other leaders who are all trying to do this well together. There's so much richness that we lose when we think we've got to do it alone.
Yeah, I have my very, very best friend. Her and I became best friends probably when our husbands deployed. No notice deployment, they left. And so now anytime that her and I have something that we need to talk about, I'm like, hey, I need you to be like deployment level honest with me right now. That's what we call it. Because and it's like, I need you to tell me what you need. Like, I need you to tell me, like, we would like old ladies, we would text each other, like, are you awake? Like, are you okay over there? Like, and like, I think that relationship has taught me a lot with other relationships where it's like, okay, this is a space where I need you to be like direct and honest about what you need. I want to help you. Like, I need to help you, but I'm going to bring you spaghetti and you're going to be like, I hate spaghetti. Like, let me know that you hate spaghetti and I'll bring you, I don't know, lasagna, which is similar to spaghetti for this analogy.
Whatever.
You know what I mean? Like, it's almost a breath of fresh air when you have that honesty in that community. And I think we lack that so much right now. Like these like unfiltered relationships of like, okay, I can't do this. Can you do this? Like, I wish there was more of that. And I wish there was more of that at work as well.
Yes.
Where it was like, hey, so as a leader, I'm speaking as a leader, I want you to come to me and be like, hey, you know what? The kid didn't sleep all last night. I have this video that I'm in the middle of editing. Can somebody else help me? Like that is like, to me, music to my ears when one of my like team members feels like they can ask
Yeah.
for help somewhere else. And I don't know how you make that more of a like culture in work, but I think that is good. And also, but you got to be the villager too, right? You
Yeah.
can't be the one asking for help. You also got to be the one picking it up. Um,
Mhm.
that's a hard balance to strike.
It is hard. I think Ron was talking about it, about really focusing on your team members. Like when you are like, you can create a safe space where people can raise their hand and say, I've got too much. I don't know how to prioritize. Or sometimes it just feels like I have too much. I just need to talk about it for 10 minutes and then I figured out how I'm going to do it. But you need that extra person, and creating safety where it doesn't have to be perfect, that there is place for experimentation, requires you to focus on the people in front of you. Not like, well, how do we optimize this with this AI tool? Which is, yes, important in some ways. We need that. But that can't be focus. That has to be support to the
I love
focus
what
of
he
people.
said about that, because I
Mhm.
wrote it down, because he said tech isn't the answer, it's the enabler.
Yes,
And I
yes.
was like, that, because AI has become such another, it's almost like another piece of my work that I'm trying
Mhm.
to figure out. And
Yeah.
when he said that, I was
I
like,
think
yeah,
everybody is in
yes,
every role, everywhere. Everybody's like, how am I supposed to use AI? Like we're starting to panic about it.
right. And it's funny because it's like, okay, wait, if we take a step back, what's the goal?
Mhm.
Is it going to help us get there? And if it's not, it's okay if we're not using all the coolest, greatest new AI tools, but
Mhm.
like having it as a partner in a, I don't know, tech is just, it's just hard. It's just
Yeah.
hard.
Well, I think we are enamored by anything that is novel. So just
Yes.
as humans, we have a novelty bias as much as we have a negativity bias. And so there's that part of it, that it's the new shiny thing. I mean, I 100% have shiny object syndrome, and whatever disco ball fraction is happening, I want to go be a part of it. And so I think as a culture, we have that because that's who we are as humans. But what I really appreciated about what Ron was saying is like, yes, you need to stay. You can't just resign to, we're going to continue to send triplicate memos on carbon copy paper. Like you won't last in business. You do have to change and pivot, like his whole concept of the pivot foot. But if it's not rooted in purpose, then you're just piling on stuff that becomes a distraction. And
Yes.
it's really painful for people because then they don't understand, like, why are we even doing this? Like, what, I don't understand. And then they become overwhelmed because it's new and I can't figure it out, and it's no longer fun because now I have to use it for output, and everything falls apart. And that's what happens when it becomes a distraction rather than the enabler, which I thought was a brilliant way to say it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good.
I did love that. And then I also loved how he was speaking about viewing. Well, I think it was you that shared the story about the woman who worked at the hotel, that
Mhm.
she started as like um, housekeeping and worked her way up. And then when she was asked about like who's the most important members, or
Yes,
who's the
yes,
most important
that's
people,
what I thought the story was, but I wanted to make sure you kept going. I
well,
was like, is that the story?
I'm
Yes,
like telling you, but anyways,
yes.
is that what was the question that was asked?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I was literally on a call today with Carrie Campbell, who was there when I heard this story. She
Oh,
was the teller of the story. And so, yeah, a woman had worked through high school, college, and worked her way up. She graduated with hospitality. And so she was interviewing for jobs. And she was like, I don't want to start back at the beginning. I've really done the work. And so she was interviewing with a man who now is who runs the Lenox Hotel in Boston. And so, which is a huge high end hotel. And he asked her, who are the most important people? And so he was telling this to a group of table, and lots of people at the table were like, well, customers, like
customer,
that's the thing.
right?
And he was like, no. And she said the right answer, which is the people that you work with. That's the most important person, which is such a flip for a lot of people, but it's true. Like the people that
But
you
think
work with.
about it. If you go to a place where people are having fun at work, don't you just love it?
Yes.
Like if I go to somewhere, a restaurant, or I worked at this soda place in college, and
Uh-huh.
it was always just like the music is fun, the people are having fun, like the environment itself made it fun for the customer. because all of the employees were excited and happy to be at work. We're in a good mood. We want to help you. We want to make you happy. Like it just, that is just so powerful of like, if you're not focusing on your team members, customers are going to get the very worst of them.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when we started talking a little bit about focusing on your employees, we focus so much on, oh, what's the customer journey? What's the client? How am I going to bring a client in? And rather than like really the client journey starts in the middle of the employee journey. Like, what's the employee journey map? And I think you had something to think about that too. I just thought that was such a brilliant way to frame how we care for people.
Yeah, I loved his idea of like the employee journey map. So like they need a job, they go to your website, they see this, like and as somebody who works in like podcast producing, I will say I love somebody who has a website that says exactly what they do. And it's just like so clear. Like I can't tell you how much of my job is me trying to research the guest to try to help make the things, do the things. And I'm like, always like, what do you do? Like, what exactly are you doing by looking at this website? I know it's a really cool guest. Like the host is really excited about you. I know you're very important, but I cannot figure you out on the website. So I will say that even there is like in a customer employee, there's that overlap where it's like if your employee can't figure out what you do, your customer sure as heck isn't going to figure out what you do.
Right.
So like how like thinking of it that way and realizing the overlap between both of those was like a really good thing for me, especially early on in business as I'm trying to make my business clear, right?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is
yeah, we always
much harder than I thought. As somebody who's not a business owner to being a business owner and trying to communicate what you do, whoo, that is hard.
So hard. Yeah. And then you throw in the expectations we have around SEO and searchability and like, is it this the way I say it, or is this the way they think about what I do? And it's so hard. It's so challenging. And there is an element of that is experimentation. Back to that idea of like, it's not black or white. And that's also sometimes when you are working that out inside an organization. I was working on a chapter of the book, and part of it includes expectations. And so when you hire somebody new, sometimes we think of expectations and we get all like, oh, I got to straighten my tie and, expectations. And really, and this is back to that clarity of what is it a person doing? How do you make it clear? Is expectations are spoken, like they're clear outside of you, like your out loud voice or your written language, they're spoken, they're agreed upon. Like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do, or that's what I'm willing to do that, even if it's not my favorite, there's an agreement to get in there. And then they're reasonable and resourced. And I can do them. I have the tools to do them. It's a reasonable request. And again, Carrie, we were talking earlier and she was talking about changing culture and like being in the midst of that culture change at an organization. And it went down to like granular things. Like one of their scores was something about cleanliness. And it turned out that the people who in housekeeping didn't have clean mops because they weren't replaced often enough, but they kept hearing about budget problems. So they were scared to ask for new mops. All like this was the change.
That's a great example of like how
it's such an easy doop, 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 doop.
Yeah.
But until you ask, you don't know. And so the expectation became unspoken. We have budget issues. So it became unreasonable for them to continue to use a somewhat subpar mop to clean something. And nobody's meeting expectations and clients.
And it affects the customers.
Yeah.
That's really
so basic.
Yeah.
Oh, it's and it doesn't help you finish your purpose. It doesn't help you achieve your purpose in that way. Because if you are, we believe, for me, I believe that we should work well together. And so in order to do that, and we should have joy at work, if that's what I believe. So I help people solve conflict. I help people communicate better, understand themselves better, and create experiences. And I do that by speaking. I do that by writing. I do that by coaching. Like that Mad Lib was so helpful as a filter.
Yes.
Even in thinking about, well, how do I hire new people when people leave and change and their businesses change, and I have to hire new people. Like, okay, how does that fit? If I'm trying to help people have more joy at work and I'm doing these things, what support do I need? And the clarity that brings to the person that I'm hiring. I'm not saying that it is easy still. It's still a back and forth of figuring it out. But I think that's the posture of trying to figure it out, and having that very clear filter in front of you makes it easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it all goes back to the idea, like you always speak on, of knowing your values, knowing your team members' values, and then the idea of purpose that both Jade and Ron both have just really, really made clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So good.
Yeah, it's so good. It has been, I feel like I've learned a lot this month.
Yeah.
I've had to say no to a lot of things
With the book.
And as a, card carrying member of the FOMO club, I feel really proud of myself.
I'm very proud of you. Gold star.
I mean, it was rough.
Yeah.
But what made that easier, because not a good decision doesn't always feel good, but what made it feel peaceful was, this is the purpose. This is the bigger, to use the business term ROI, this is the bigger idea that's coming. It definitely made it simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to keep talking. I have more questions, but I think our time is finished, which I don't really love.
I know, it goes by so fast.
I know.
I love these episodes. I love talking about the overview of all of them and how they've showed up in our lives. It's really been fun.
I so love them as well. I'm glad that we've got another one to do. And so if you are listening, this month, besides getting Ron's book, which comes out next week, you can pre-order that. You can also pre-order my book, which is crazy. And if you go to, so if you go to, let's see if I can do fancy things. If you go to jennwhitmer.com/books, you can sign up to be on the VIP list, which is actually the very important party. And so we'd love to have you. And in the show notes, we'll have Ron's book, where you can get The Purpose of Purpose, and pre-orders help authors in all kinds of ways. But it also means that it comes to your door usually before it actually releases, which is kind of fun. So you get a little extra. And Shelby, what do you want to say to the people getting in touch with you right now?
I don't know what I want to say. I just be professional, but be yourself, I think is my sign off for this one, is being ourselves as we are professional.
I love that.
We can change that word a little bit so we all don't feel so stuffy in it.
Stuffy about it. I love this. It's a good challenge. So, I mean, if you're going to do that, I'd love to hear some stories. We love it when you share stories and tag us on LinkedIn and Instagram. So if you find a place, let us know. That would be great.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, next week we'll be back, and I will be back with a solo episode and talking about why sometimes your gratitude feels like an HR memo. So make sure that you pay attention, and we will see you next week.
So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at Jenn with 2 N's at jennwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.